to As the Story Grows. I'm Brad Patton. Today we welcome Bloodhorse drummer Alex Garcia Rivera to the podcast. Bloodhorse released A Malign Star last Friday with Iodine Recordings. Alex talks about Mystic Valley Studios and the joy of analog recording, his journey of musical discovery, the inception of Bloodhorse and the band's journey to Iodine and A Malign Star, and a lot more. As a person whose preferred genre of metal is sludge and doom stuff, I was instantly sold when Iodine dropped the first single from A Malign Star. Bloodhorse balances their love for classic rock and the sludge metal side of their sound nicely, and I think A Malign Star is a phenomenal record. So find the link to the album in the show notes and give it a spin. Thanks much for listening to this episode of As the Story Grows. If you're a brand new listener to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. If you want to know more about the podcast, you can find links in the show notes or at asthestorygrows.com for our mailing list, our podcast community on Discord, and our Patreon page. Enjoy today's conversation with Alex Garcia Rivera from Bloodhorse.
Yeah, I've been pretty crazily busy these days. I the studio was at a pretty good level before COVID happened, and then I obviously closed during that time, and haven't really reached that level of busyness until probably a month ago or something.
Nice.
And it seems to be maintaining throughout the summer and whatnot. So back on.
What led you to be an all analog studio?
I don't really know. I just I don't know. When I got into recording, it was a really organic process. I've been just a drummer my whole life and not really thinking about a career in audio or anything. But it was right after American Nightmare broke up. I think it was 2005. We got back together in 2011. So there's that window where we just weren't a band. And I started, that's when I started Bloodhorse, actually, around there. And I was like, hey, I think I can record some demos or something for us. And I didn't, my brain didn't go to oh, I have a computer, I will use that. It was oh, we used to make recordings with those 4-track cassette things. So I got one of those, and they were really cheap at the time because nobody wanted them. And then it was the progression of recording pieces of gear that I got, and their quality just jumped pretty quickly. It was maybe a month or two later, I was wow, I think they make 8-track versions of this. So I got a 8-track cassette thing. It's a much bigger unit. And then I was wow, now we got 8 tracks, and I messed around with that. And then I started looking through eBay and stuff, and you could get those small reel-to-reel recorders that had 16 tracks on half-inch tape. And I got that and a little Ramza mixing board. And that's what I made the first Bloodhorse album on. And I just had mics and no other outboard gear. I think I had one, it's a Lesis 3630 compressor. It's the worst compressor ever made or something. But I made a record with that in the basement of the legendary Alston house, 12 Wadsworth Street. I don't know. It was a big punk house. The basement of that house, it housed 3 bands. It was Hope Conspiracy, Cave In, and American Nightmare. We all used to practice down there, and that became my little studio for recording stuff. But really, it was just kind of an organic flow of getting into the tape stuff because I just thought it was cooler. It's a cooler way to do it, and that along with it was dirt cheap. I remember getting this giant 2-inch tape machine, 16 track. It was an Ampex MM1000. The thing was like as big as like 2 washing machines put together with like a bridge over the top with electronics up there. And I think it was like $1,000. I got it from some guy in Western Mass, so it was like drivable distance. And I just kept finding all these deals on analog gear that was like driving distance for me.
Wow.
And that just like kept me interested in it, I guess. And nowadays it's like the only reason why I think people are that excited about recording with me. I mean, not to belittle myself, but like the fascination with it being all analog. And I've learned just recently that as far as people doing completely analog, like there's so few doing it like fully analog, like mixing back on a 2-track tape. I got a visit from the tape company, the manufacturer, recording the masters. They're like touring studios around the world right now, and they were in the Northeast. And the guy was like, "Wow, so you don't dump it to digital or anything?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I dump to digital for bands that just come here to track drums or whatever, but like my own sessions, it's pretty much all analog." And he's like, "There are only 2 other studios in the world that we know of doing that.
No.
One was in like Belgium or something, and the other one, I think he said, was like being built now." So, I know you can like walk into Electrical Audio and make a analog record and a handful of other studios, but I'm the one that's like, that's my go-to. Not that no one's like convincing me to do tape. I have been convinced to do digital sessions before, but it's not what I'm known for. It's hard to get excited about it, even for me. It's like I could become a musician to click a mouse and stare at a screen all day. You know what I mean? And like digital has come a long way. Like I think the argument for analog sounding better than digital or anything, like I don't think that's so important anymore. I mean, analog has a sound for sure, but it's not some magical thing really. What I really enjoy is the workflow of it. And even just like this reel is full, we got to switch reels, put a new reel on, and just the little break you get for the bands. But I work pretty long days here, even for me to just like have a moment to change a reel out, reorganize my thoughts, whatever. That stuff's important, I think. And the sort of like decision-making process where I don't leave anything till mixing, till later. It's like I print my sounds onto tape the way that I want to hear them, so like they're all EQ'd, compressed, and then when it does come time to mix, it's just you put the faders up and you're sort of like 90% there. The rest is just like refining stuff. And I know you can still record that way to digital, like absolutely, but there's more like there's no undo button for
yeah.
Like if you want to punch in and like the punch in's not good, like you can't just like click a button and go back. You gotta keep punching in until you get a great one, or like cutting and pasting. You can't do that. Like the analog version of that, it sort of is punching in, like do that section better.
Yeah.
But, I got really good at punching in. Like I can punch in like syllables and like single guitar notes, and someone misses a kick drum hit, I can punch in a kick drum, things like that. So I got really good at that. But it's just more fun. Like having a machine that only records and plays back music is pretty cool. It's like, I don't know, like if you just put a computer next to a tape machine and a console or something and say, "Oh, which looks cooler?" Like, I don't think anyone's going to pick the computer.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is it has opened up a whole world of possibilities for bands and people that normally record anything. And so like the creative output is like charts right now, and like, you know, there's a lot more to sort through. There is less sort of gatekeeping by, you know, a record label having the money to pay for a expensive studio. So like that's gone, but now it's like the people decide what gets popular, you know what I mean? And that's really cool. So I like sort of a lot of aspects of the sort of digital world with music. You know, it's like, I think people aren't even trying to figure out a way to get paid for digital music anymore. It's just like not even a thought. It's just like you put your music out and make your money in other ways to pay for the recording.
Yeah.
Rough out there with that. But, you know, I come from like an older generation where just being a drummer, like I'm not a PR person. Like, I don't know how to promote anything or like manage stuff or book stuff, you know, and I don't really want to. I kind of like being specialized. But like back then, you know, you would have somebody that only engineered records, maybe somebody that only mixed records. I only produce. I only tune the drums. You know, everything was specialized, and you had like people that were really great at it. And so the quality of the sounds of stuff was like, maybe we'll never get back to that point. And now it's like, you know, oh, and like a record label, they got the records made for you. They did the promotion and all that stuff. So now it's like a single artist that's like creating their own music in a computer. They also have to be pretty good at promoting themselves and like making their own videos. You want records, you got to pay for them. You know, all this stuff, it's all just coming from the artists themselves, and getting off the ground, it's a lot harder to do. The punk in me is like, oh, that's better, because then, you know, there's no one else like taking your money from you, you know. You know, it's a cool place to be if you look at it that way, that we've kind of ended up at right now.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go back in time. What kind of was your gateway into music, and maybe specifically punk or hardcore metal?
I mean, gateway to music, it varies. I'm going to go way back, I guess. The first music I remember liking was just stuff from like the back of Mom's station wagon in the 70s. I was born in 73. So, you know, when I was like 5 or 6 or whatever, like disco was still pretty happening, and like a lot of like soft rock, you know, late 70s stuff. And I don't know, it's like, that's sort of like, you don't think of it as your own, but it influences you in a way. And like, that's when I discovered I like music. And then I sitter that was like a Beatles fanatic. I remember like going to her house once, and like there's literally like Beatles like stuff all over the walls and everything. And so I bought a Beatles record, and that was like one of my first things that was like my own. So maybe that was, I think, my second record. My first record was Creedence Clearwater Revival. Okay. And I remember seeing an ad on TV for like this live record of theirs, and I remember going to a music store. It might have been Newbury Comics, back when there was like 1 or 2 locations, and I remember just looking through, and I was like, oh, Creedence Clearwater Revival, that's a band I know. I'm gonna look at what they have, and I'm like, hey, here's that live one I saw on TV. I'm gonna get this. And so those were the first like things that were like my own music. And then hair metal, that got popular shortly after. Before it got too watered down, like the first couple of Motley Crue albums I really liked. 84 album was like the biggest thing in the world when that came out. That like had a huge impact on me. Alex Van Halen remains one of my favorite drummers still. And I don't know, got into the whole classic rock thing, you know, Led Zeppelin, Who, stuff like that. My first band, we were about probably 13 years old, and we would watch the Who movie, The Kids Are All Right, and, you know, shows them like, you know, smashing guitars and stuff, and it looked so like punk in a way, and we were kind of just discovering punk at the same time. So to us, it was like no different than the Sex Pistols, really, which we were getting into that. And it's funny, like we're getting to about like 1986 or 1987 when there definitely was like, let's say maybe the first wave of true hardcore bands, like, you know, Minor Threat and Black Flag, stuff like that, where instead of really getting into that, we kind of went and got into the early punk stuff. And it might have only been like a few months ahead. I mean, it was almost simultaneously, but like we were listening to, you know, the Clash and the Sex Pistols and stuff, and the Ramones, and also, you know, Minor Threat, but then also like, oh, Gorilla Biscuits, this stuff's cool, and Sick of It All, a lot of the New York hardcore bands, Killing Time, stuff like that. And that kind of, I don't know, it seemed like this like slow progress, but looking back now, it was probably within a matter of months because we were so young and we were all getting into that and started to play that. It's like my first band was like, you know, we would play like a Who cover, but then we'd play a Misfits cover. Our stuff that we were making that was our own was kind of this like weird bastardized version of those things. It was kind of like skate punk or something, which then morphed into something heavier, and we went under the name Kingpin, with, you know, the big pants and extra large t-shirts to prove it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's what kind of got me into music. There was a sort of influential neighborhood kid, this guy Sean Love. He was like maybe a few years older, but he was like one of the bigger kids, and he was like a total like metalhead. And I remember the first time I heard Black Sabbath was in his basement, and there was like a blacklight poster and like, I don't know, just candles and stuff like that. And it seemed like, oh, he's found something else that, like, you know, the mainstream doesn't really know about. And so we got really into Black Sabbath as well, and like early Metallica. So like kind of hand in hand, like the metal stuff and the punk and the hardcore was kind of like, you know, stuff that we identified with.
Nice.
But yeah, there wasn't a lot of mainstream stuff in like the 90s and like late 80s. The early and mid 80s, like you couldn't escape it. And to me, it was like the best pop music of all time. So like, you know, you could turn on the radio and hear like a brand new Prince song or Cyndi Lauper or like Huey Lewis or like these like pop songs that like I always thought were cool. And yeah, in the 90s, I was too punk really to listen to or like what was on the radio, and even like the grunge stuff. You know, again, I was like way too punk to get into that. And I remember even hearing Nirvana for the first time, and people were like, oh yeah, this punk band, they're like mainstream now, they just like have a like #1 song or something. And I'm like, this isn't punk, this isn't hardcore. And so I didn't even like it at first. Like, you know, it took a few years and I was like, oh wait, it's actually like brilliant stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know, the first Green Day album I liked, but like a lot of stuff I thought was kind of lame until like kind of later in life. I don't know if I got nostalgic for it or what, but you know, I remember thinking always that Stone Temple Pilots was like the worst grunge band ever. And I may be right about that still, but when I realized way late, like after that whole thing, I was like, wait a minute, I don't think they were going for that. I think they were like just like a pretty good rock band. And if you kind of see them out of the context of the grunge era, they're like just this kind of great rock band. And I think kind of removing bands from the context around it really gives you like a more pure, opinion about it, which is why a lot of like hardcore actually like sucks, because like you take it out of the kind of like environment where like, you kind of forget the stuff around it and you're like, oh wait, this like sounds like garbage, and like what are they even screaming about? Every genre of music has a lot of stuff, and then like a handful of bands that rise above the genre and are just universally good. And like I'll use Minor Threat as an example. It's like that's just good music. Mm-hmm. It happens to be hardcore, but it's just good music. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, like, I've always felt that Jeff Nelson kind of wrote the blueprint for like hardcore drumming, like the punk drumming. There's no cheap beat. It was like just like a solid tap 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 tap, And I've always felt not enough people give him credit, but he was like a huge influence on my playing. And I remember hearing like the fast punk beat, and I think it might have been like one of the really fast Metallica ones, and I was like, how is he playing the hi-hat that fast? Like, that's not human. He must be using like his foot on the foot pedal or something. And then I was like, oh no, he's just really playing really fast. And I was like, I got to do that. And that's how I learned how to play fast.
Let's talk about Bloodhorse. What was the kind of inspiration and defining moment for starting this band?
Well, it was right after American Nightmare broke up, so it was 2005, and there's this band Bars that our guitarist was doing, and they had a full band already. The record, I think, was out, and their drummer couldn't make it for a couple shows or something, and so I played, I think, 2 shows with them. But that's where I met the guys that later became Bloodhorse, Matt Woods and Adam Wentworth, bass and guitar. And I remember they showed up early for band practice, which was at that Wadsworth punk house in the basement there, and one of them played like a Deep Purple riff. And then we just started jamming on it. And like, that was part of my like classic rock upbringing, like loved Deep Purple. But like, I've never known any other musicians that also like Deep Purple. And so I was like, wow, these guys know Deep Purple and they seem to really like it too. And after jamming on that, we're like, holy shit, like, you love Deep Purple? I love Deep Purple. Like, we should do a band that maybe sounds more like that than this band or than punk stuff that we usually do. Yeah. And so I played 2 shows with Bars, and then after that we started Bloodhorse, and I don't know, Matt Woods is just a riff machine. He plays bass, he writes all the riffs on bass. I mean, he plays guitar too. I think later stuff he ended up like kind of like fully demoing some stuff with guitar and bass, and I don't know, it just kind of organically happened. We loved playing with each other and had this like mutual respect. It's like at one point I was saying Matt Woods is probably like the best living bass player, and we just really enjoyed playing together. We started having band practices like every time that we could. I think we were having band practice like twice a week, maybe 3 or something, and just jamming and writing songs based off of jams. Super fun. And it kind of brought me back to like the way that my first band would write songs before there were like big tours and like, people's livelihoods involved. And yeah, we kept doing the band, put out, at first we did like a 4-song demo that I recorded on that like shitty reel-to-reel in the basement there. And then I got a little better at recording, and I made our first EP, and Translation Lost. Those guys really liked the band, and they put it out through this like transition where my wife and I bought a house, and I built a studio that I still have in the house. And so we were in the middle of writing songs, and we had to kind of take a break. And it took me, I think, like 8 or 9 months to build out the studio. Then we kind of reconvened, and then we did our Horizoner full-length album, also on Translation Lost. But then our guitarist Matt moved to New York, and I don't know, it kind of slowed things down a bit. Matt Woods and I would get together, still probably twice a week at least, and still we would jam, just bass and drums. And we were such a tight rhythm section. And a lot of the songs were just bass and drums. And we're like, what's Adam going to put on it when he hears it? And then he'd come up on like a weekend, you know, once in a while. And then, yeah, we played a whole bunch of shows regionally. We did like a couple of short tours. And the live shows were awesome. Like we almost treated it like, you know, classic rock band being on tour. Like I would do like a drum solo every night, like in one of the songs, like, you know, like a big band from the 70s might have done. But just because, like, I don't know, that's where our heads were at. I had this giant gong, which became like a fourth band member. I ordered this like enormous gong direct from like Wuhan, China, and the thing showed up, and I had it on the stand behind me with like a mallet came with. So I went to the hardware store down the street. I bought a shovel, sawed off the shovel handle,
Jeez.
and just like put this like wad of like cloth around it, and like that became the thing. But going back to the Who, it all started with Keith Moon, because we were like, did he have one gong that said the Who, or two gongs that said like the Who? And like, oh, you know, hey, you should get it. Where would I use it? So I just bought one just for the heck of it. And then it ended up being like a pretty integral part of the songs, because I remember seeing how Keith Moon had his. He had the mallet attached with a strap to the stand, and he could just throw it on there. And so I could play a beat and throw it on there and hit a crash. So it was like just like an extra big crash cymbal. And that became like part of the sound of everything. But anyways, yeah, we played a bunch of shows, and it was awesome, but we lost steam with Adam moving to New York, and then they started doing All Pigs Must Die, because they wanted to go like faster and heavier and like more like, I guess, metal. So they started that, and then started practicing, I think, down in New York. And right around then I joined Cold Cave and started touring with Cold Cave. And we just like, we never broke up, but we just stopped playing.
Yeah.
And then like every year or so, we'd, you know, text each other and be like, hey, like we were writing some pretty awesome songs before we stopped playing. Like, should we record those? Like, even just for us to have? And we're always like, yeah. But it took like years for us to make that happen. I mean, it might have been years or almost 10 years of, you know, the annual or biannual text like, hey, should we record these? And so finally we went and did it, and it was about maybe three to 4 years ago when we started recording this album that is just coming out now.
Jeez.
And we just took our time with it, and, you know, it's like there was no reason to make it happen other than we wanted to do it and we wanted to hear it and document it. And we always felt that it was just like this really great music. It was like we always felt like we fell a little bit behind the mark from where we wanted to be every time we made a Bloodhorse record. And trying to play catch up with where we actually were. And I think finally we kind of like made the album that that represented Bloodhorse more accurately. But we had like unlimited studio time to do it. It was just a matter of getting it done. And so we just kind of didn't cut any corners and made the album that we wanted. And then even the release of it is pretty organic. Casey over at Iodine, friend of, started up the label again. I wouldn't have thought really to put it out on a label, but turns out he hired an employee, and his single employee is like one of my close friends. And she was like, hey man, like Casey's kind of giving me the green light to put out anything I want. Like, do you want to put out that Bloodhorse stuff? And I was like, I mean, yes, I do. Like, seems like a good fit. And it's actually coming out tomorrow, I think.
Friday?
Friday, yeah. Oh wait, today's Wednesday? Yeah, Friday. Yeah. So day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's like at one time I'm excited, and then like the next minute I'm like, I've heard this stuff for like 4 years now. Yeah. Like, you know, how excited should I be? Like, does anyone care anymore? You know, I don't know. We're gonna have to like rediscover our old fan base, and like hopefully, you know, newer people will get into it. Because I mean, like I say, it's like this kind of definitive album for us. And I don't know, just if you like that genre of music, you this album.
Yeah. I don't know what type of fan is coming to Iodine these days. Like, I mean, I'm 40, so I still have like label loyalty, right? Where you like anytime a label puts something out, you'd be like, I like that label, I'm gonna pick it up. I feel that way about Iodine. So it's like anytime they announce a new band, I'm here for it, but I have no idea what. Am I the average Iodine fan? Or?
Right. I mean, yeah, every label kind of had their own scene.
Yeah.
Which was what was cool about it. So like, you know, you would strive to, you know, put your music on like the right fitting label. You know, that's a total thing for sure. That's maybe even what separates the indie labels from the bigger labels. You know, it's like you've got your little scene, and like, you know, it's like curated for you. So like you can just trust like, oh, whatever this label puts out, I'm gonna like, because I liked all their other stuff. And so like to have a band like fit in with that, it's like kind of like a perfect way to find new music. Friend being like, you're gonna like this. But as far as like Iodine's you know, spread of like, I'm not supposed to know anything that's cool. I mean, the studio keeps me in the loop of like what's going on, and you know, I still play a lot of shows and stuff, and you know, I'm not totally out of it, but yeah, I definitely don't know like what's cool or what's not. And you know, even like a 40-year-old is like an old person by like, you know, young musician standards. Yeah. But that's like you're a decade younger than me. And like, so I don't know. Yeah, but it's weird. But like I say, like I'm a musician. Like I don't know the first thing about like promoting stuff or like what's cool or like how to put out. It's not why I play music. I play music because I love making music and drumming and everything. So, you know, I trust that Casey and Iodine knows what to do with it, or that anyone who wants to find it will find it. But aside from that, like, it's out of my hands. Like, as a person that creates the music, like, you can't really like pick who listens to it or who your fan base is or anything. You just put it in the world, and I connect with all the music I make. So that's all that really matters to me.
Yeah. With the album coming out Friday, I mean, you have the studio. Everybody's got lives and jobs. It's difficult to be active as a musician the older you get. But is your hope to try to play some shows surrounding this release?
Yeah, I mean, we actually had a show booked, and I don't know, there's sort of a miscommunication with that, and we ended up talking with the promoter and deciding we should not do the show. It wasn't good for anyone. It's not promoted. I don't think they were opening bands picked, and I don't know, it just fell through the cracks. But now it's like getting the band members on board with like a date or a few days. Yeah. It's like harder now. Like, people have like kids and like adult jobs and stuff, and now like I'm the most flexible one. So to me, I'm like, let's pick a date. I will make it happen. Yeah. But now it's like the venue, you got to book far enough out that like we're totally missing our actual release date. But we will book a show or a few shows and have the record available there. Like, I talked to the label. We're gonna like get a bunch of records and have some kind of like record release concert performance, even though it's going to be past the actual release date. Yeah. But the sort of like best thing about that band was the live shows, and I mean, for me, I would tour with this band and like do all sorts of stuff, but like the reality is it's like older dudes with kids and jobs and families and lives. Like, unless you've already got like a big budget tour kind of scenario in place, like, you're not going to go out on the road and eat shit out there as a adult family man. You know what I mean? Right. So we will do what we can, and we all really enjoy playing with each other, and playing on stage together is like something we really enjoy. So we're going to try to make that happen. But as far as the extent of how many shows that might be and like how far away from where we live that's going to be, that remains to be seen. Yeah. But like nothing is forever. On the other hand, we could be doing this band in some capacity for the rest of our lives, so it's like, maybe just right now isn't the time to do that stuff, but maybe in a few years we could be like super active. But like, yeah. I just don't know, and I'm not like really pressuring my bandmates, because I mean, we're all friends and we all respect each other, so whatever will happen will be appropriate for us. But I don't know, as cool as live shows are, I refuse to believe in this day and age that that's like the only way you can promote records. Yeah. It's like, maybe we make some cool like videos or something, or I don't know, like stream of a performance or something. I just don't know. Again, I'm not a promoter. I'm not a PR person. I'm a drummer. Let someone else figure that out. I'll show up when they tell me to show up, and I'll do whatever.
I already did my job. I'm out.
I mean, I want to be involved, but it's like I don't know what to do actually.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But podcasts are fun. I'll do a ton of those. I felt that it's some of the best music I've been a part of. And I don't know, the all analog aspect of it is pretty cool. I feel like it's unique in some ways in this day and age. Just for like the performance aspect, like to get like a take, like a drum take, you gotta play the song from the beginning of the song all the way to the end without making any mistakes. Mm-hmm. And like, can people do that? Like, sure. Do people do that? Not really. You know, you're maybe 3 takes in, where maybe on the 7th take would have been your perfect one. You got 3 takes and you're like, well, let's just fix this like kick drum part here, or like let's use the first half of the song from take 1, and you just do it because that's just how studios operate now, and it's quicker. Yeah. But like, I don't know, I think I get to proudly say that I actually played every note of drums on that album, like actually start to finish. And you know, it's not the most complex stuff in the world, but some of it's pretty shreddy, and so like I can kind of like I'll wear that badge if I'm giving it to myself, you know. And then you know, my hat off to the other guys in the band. They really just you know, went along with that. And sure, it's easier to punch in a couple of mistakes here and there, but for the most part, those are like complete performances. Yeah. And I think that kind of changes the vibe of a recording, and it's just not done that much anymore. So the album is kind of special in that way. But at the same time, I don't know if the average listener like would hear that in it or cares about that. So like, yeah. It's almost not worth saying, but like, I felt like maybe I will say it at least one time to just, you know, let people know, because it's maybe a little more interesting than the next record. It's like, it's just playing, you know, that's just the sound of 3 people in a room making music with a couple, you know, some overdubbed guitar solos and whatnot. But anyways, we're excited to have the album out, and you know, we'll see. Hopefully people connect with it the way that we do.